The first decision you have to make before you start cooking anything is which pan to use. There are a lot of options out there, many that you don't need, and a few that you do. In this chapter, I'm gonna talk about the 5 essential pots and pans so that you can cook anything. A stock pot, saucepan, cast iron skillet, nonstick, and Dutch oven. So let's get started with the stock pot. I recommend a stainless steel stock pot. Stainless steel is easier to clean. It's also non-reactive, and that means that you can cook a giant pot of tomato sauce and it won't impart any metal flavors into it. You want a stock pot with a heavy bottom to it. The heavy bottom on pans means it's going to cook more evenly and retain heat better. Another really important feature of a stock pot is that you get one with a lid, so you can bring the water up to a boil quicker. So that is a stock pot. The next thing that we're gonna talk about is a saucepan. A saucepan can do pretty much everything that a stock pot can do, but in smaller quantity. I recommend for a size, like a 3 to 4 quart saucepan is pretty versatile for almost anything that you would want. A couple of things to look for. First of all, again, what is it made out of? You can find things besides stainless steel, which this one is. There's aluminum, there's copper. Also looking for, again, a thick bottom. As your burner heats the bottom of your pan, instead of that heat going instantly straight through the pan and onto your food, it's hitting this really heavy bottom first, and then the heat is dispersing evenly across the bottom of the pan before it then starts heating what's in your pan. I use my saucepan for reheating leftovers, and the lid is really important for that. If you tried to heat up mashed potatoes in a pan without a lid, what's gonna happen is as it's starting to heat up, all the liquid and moisture is gonna start evaporating. By putting a lid on it, it keeps that evaporation from happening, and it also makes it heat slower and more evenly. That pretty much sums up everything that a saucepan is good for. To me, my nonstick pan is my egg pan. This is the only pan that I really think it's important to buy new. Used nonstick pans can have a lot of scratches and things on them, and you don't want to use one where that protective surface has been damaged. The most important thing about your nonstick pan is how to care for it. You want to make sure that you don't use utensils that would scratch the nonstick surface on it. So nothing metal. For the same reason, when you clean it, you want to be delicate with your nonstick surface. Just use the soft part of the sponge. It is nonstick, so if you just wipe it gently with a sponge, it's gonna come clean really easy. Never use a metal scouring pad on it. It's something that I cannot live without, and our morning breakfasts depend on this immensely. Next up, cast iron. This baby is the workhorse of my kitchen. I use this cast iron for just about everything. The best thing about a cast iron skillet, which is why I do recommend that you look for them potentially used, is they last a lifetime. First thing that I always do is look at the base and run your hand along it. If when you do this, you feel any mounds or craters, what that means is that the pan was mistreated at some point and there's no going back. It is warped. A warped cast iron skillet comes from taking it hot off the stove and throwing it in your sink and then turning the cold water on. The beauty of the fact that it is super heavy means that it heats the most evenly and retains its heat better than any other pan that I have in my kitchen. What is that good for? It is good for even searing when you're talking about cast iron. It's slow to get hot, but I want that, right? What that means is that I don't end up with these heat pockets. It's gonna heat slowly, and the entire thick, heavy bottom of this cast iron skillet is going to be the same temperature across the surface of my pan. What can you cook in a cast iron skillet? Well, anything that you wanna sear, it's built for that. But also anything that you wanna finish in the oven. If you take good care of your cast iron skillet, it will last forever. And when we talk about care, cleaning is mostly what you need to pay attention to care. The first rule of cast iron skillets is don't clean it too well. And what I mean by that is it can't go in the dishwasher. When you go to clean it, I do use soap, but I think about it more like my nonstick when I do. I put a little bit of soap, I use a soft sponge. After it is cleaned, there are two really important things that you need to remember. One is you have to immediately dry it really thoroughly. And then you want to apply oil. That protects the pan from rusting. Next, we are gonna talk about the Dutch oven. It's like if a cast iron skillet and a stock pot got together and had a child, I think that would make the Dutch oven. What I love, to use a Dutch oven for is it is meant for recipes that you start on the stove and then finish in the oven. Braises, stews, roast chicken. They're cast iron based and enamel lined usually. That's why it's white inside instead of being that black. The enamel lining means that it's a non-reactive pan. It's one of the most versatile pans in my pan arsenal. Now that you know what to look for when choosing and caring for your pans, we can get cooking.